Yaps. It's in the name. Today, the fugitive leader of ISIS in Iraq was killed. He was relentlessly hunted down by our intrepid warfighters. His miserable life was terminated, along with any other member of ISIS, in coordination with Iraqi government and Kurdish regional government. Peace through strength. Oh my gosh. What in the world is going on? And I mean, to be honest, this is exactly what we voted for. Peace through strength.
Begin this Sunday morning with President Trump's new message to Iran, with the commander-in-chief ordering a powerful and deadly attack against Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen over the weekend. Multiple rebels dead after the strikes hit the intended targets in Yemen's capital city on Saturday. With President Trump writing on Truth Social, the Houthis have waged an unrelenting campaign of piracy, violence, and terrorism against American ships, aircraft, and drones. Your attacks must stop starting today. And if they don't...
I'm not gonna lie, what a tough PFP, you know? Most people over on Twitter have like their favorite anime character. Not Trump, just him with the American war paint on.
Hell will rain down upon you like nothing you have ever seen before, writes the president. Trump also sending a direct message to Iran, warning the Iranians not to support terrorist proxies. The president following up after breaking news on this program last week that he sent a letter to the supreme leader of Iran asking to open up talks regarding Iran's nuclear ambitions.
I've written him a letter saying, I hope you're going to negotiate, because if we have to go in militarily, it's going to be a terrible thing for them.
You wrote a letter to the Khomeini,
Yes.
the leader? When did you send the letter?
Yesterday.
And you...
Why are we doing? Why can't we just have like a, like get in a Discord call? You know, like why are we writing letters and sending it by like pigeons? What is this, like Game of Thrones?
said you better negotiate, or we want you to negotiate.
I didn't say you better. I said
Okay.
I hope you're going to negotiate, because it's going to be a lot better for Iran. And I think they want to get that letter. The other alternative is we have to do something, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
I mean, I being an American, I will admit, and I can understand that the only media that I have seen about Iran and Iraq and all of this is through, mainstream media and what I've seen through Twitch streamers and everything else. So I understand it's probably not like truly that what's going on. It's probably like only about 40% of context what's going on. But out of that 40%, I don't think they need a nuclear bomb. I don't know if I trust them with it. Is all I'm trying to get at.
Comments sparking a response to the interview from Iran last weekend, with the supreme leader saying Iran would not be bullied, writing, the insistence of some bullying governments on negotiations is not aimed at resolving issues, but rather at asserting dominance and imposing their demands. The Islamic Republic of Iran will certainly not accept their demands, writes the Ayatollah Khomeini.
Oh my
Join me
gosh.
now with more on the Yemeni attack, Iran and the...
Hold on, let me read this again. Breaking: Iran Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, in an apparent response to Trump's call for negotiation, said this instance of some bullying governments on negotiations is not aimed to resolve the issue, but rather assert dominance, and it's imposing on their demands. The Islamic Republic of Iran will certainly not accept their demands. Well, literally 4 minutes ago, as of recording this video, just in, U.S. forces launch more strikes on Yemen's Houthis. Wow. Well, I can assure you that we're gonna have way more news about this tomorrow morning.
Their demands, writes the Ayatollah Khomeini. Joining me now with more on the Yemeni attack, Iran, and the president's agenda is the nation's Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. Mr. Secretary, great to see you this morning. Thank you for being here. Can you tell us how it all went down on Saturday?
Well, it all went down because an era of peace through strength is back. Just like in his first term, President Trump had to deal with the weakness of President Obama and get rid of ISIS, and he did it more quickly than anybody else. We're sitting on 4 years of deferred maintenance from Joe Biden, where, in particular, when you talk about the Houthis, they were allowed for over 100 times to shoot at U.S. ships to shoot at commercial shipping.
Yeah, it's unacceptable.
4 months ago, when we sent a ship through, it was shot at 17 times. Ships haven't been able to go through for over a year without being shot at. Freedom of navigation is basic. It's a core national interest. And President Trump has said, we will restore that, and we will be unrelenting. I want to be very clear. This campaign is about freedom of navigation and restoring deterrence. The minute the Houthis say, we'll stop shooting at your ships, we'll stop shooting at your drones, this campaign will end. But until then, it will be unrelenting. We got the reports last night.
Wow. That's a statement. It will be unrelenting.
Maria, the Houthi capital felt like an earthquake.
Which I understand. There's a lot going on right in here in this little strait, whatever you want to call this. There's a lot of trade that is supposed to be happening, but with everything going on, this is preventing it. I'm curious to see with Saudi Arabia. They're supposedly building like this hyper train system to go from one side to the other to help mitigate some of this issue, and just as another way of just transportation, like global logistics.
Dozens and dozens of precision heavy munitions dropping precisely on the targets that we wanted to hit, sending a very clear message. And the message is clear to Iran as well. And the president said it in his truth. Your support of the Houthis needs to end immediately.
That's a lot of
We will hold you accountable as the sponsor of this proxy. And I echo his statement. We will not be nice about it. This is not the Biden administration. The message is clear. We will come after the Houthis until they stop shooting at our ships, and the Iranians better stay out of it.
And there's
I'm not gonna lie, I support that.
so many implications to this. I remember last year when this was happening, basically every day or every other day that our ships would get harassed by these rebels. And what ended up happening from an economic perspective as well, many commercial ships were afraid to even go into that route in the Red Sea. They were going around the Horn, and it was costing much more money, sending oil prices higher because it was much more expensive for the longer travel. So it's
not only was it more expensive for the longer travel, but it was a longer travel, so it took things even longer to get to its destination. That's why, like, when I'm talking about like global logistics, that you know, that hyper train that's going to go across Saudi Arabia, I think it's like the Corridor Strait. All of that's interesting, but the conflict that's going over in the Middle East, it seems never ending.
not just a national security issue, but an economic one as well.
100%. And the president understands that. Global shipping, global commerce, when it's threatened by effectively pirates and piracy, and you have to divert and go an extra 2 weeks,
Diverted by One
costing
Piece?
millions,
Luffy?
and then eventually billions of dollars,
No, it'd
you're
be
being
more
held
Kaido.
hostage by a terrorist organization. Remember, the Biden administration took off the foreign terrorist organization designation of the Houthis.
That's right.
President Trump restored it. We're squeezing them economically. We are pounding them militarily. By the way, to the Houthis, this isn't a one-night thing.
You're pounding
this
them?
will continue until you say, we're done shooting at ships, we're done shooting at assets. We don't want a long, limited war in the Middle East. We don't care what happens in the Yemeni civil war. This is about stopping the shooting at assets in that critical waterway.
I think that's a very powerful distinction there, saying, hey, they can have their civil war, whatever outcome is the outcome there. All we're focused on is, hey, we have our ships, our assets, our people, our civilians going back and forth, you know, trying to do good and create trade, to create sustainable trade and create good relations and sustainable relations. We need Kaido and his pirates to stop shooting at us, and when they say that they will stop, then we will stop relentlessly pounding their cheeks.
Reopen freedom of navigation, which is a core
Or at least
national
that's how
interest
I'm
of the
understanding
United
that.
States. And Iran has been enabling the Houthis for far too long. They better back off.
And enabling the Houthis, but also Hamas and Hezbollah. Secretary, assess the capability and the capacity today of these Iranian proxies. I'm talking about Hezbollah having become weakened in the last several months. Hamas weakened as a result of the Israeli strikes. What can you tell us about the capacity of these Iranian proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and now the Houthis? What is their state today?
Well, Maria, Iran is in a very weakened state. When you mentioned it, Hezbollah, you mentioned it, Hamas. You look at what happened in Syria with the collapse of that regime, which was a client state of Iran. And ultimately,
All of these
a lot
groups
of their
just so oppressive.
insurgent groups in Iraq have pulled back as well. But it doesn't mean they still don't have the desire.
They don't really inspire much
their air defenses are weakened,
positivity,
and
do
that's
they?
why they're in a position where they're supporting groups like the Houthis, because they, in some ways, have to move to other options to try to agitate and instigate in the region. This is a critical moment for them, and the president said it on your program. He said it very clearly. They will not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. We hope they do so, that we give it up peaceably through negotiations. The president has laid out the trajectory for that because the alternative doesn't look good for anybody.
I feel like we've been hearing that Iran is close to having a nuclear weapon. We're a month away, 2 months away. We've been hearing this for years. Realistically speaking, Secretary, how close is Iran from developing a nuclear weapon in your view?
Well, I don't think we really know, to be honest. I think we're going to go off of, like reconnaissance and data. And that's all, like, even if you feel 100% about it, you probably can only give it 80% credence and realize 20% of it could be fugazi.
That's something that's classified, something we guard very closely, we watch very closely. And that's why
He's
the
not gonna
president
tell
has
us.
such urgency on this, why he's leading on this. Nobody wants a military option as it pertains to Iran. So he is, through maximum pressure, just as he did in his first administration, maximum pressure bankrupt the Iranians. Well, under Joe Biden, what happened? They took off that maximum pressure, and groups like the Houthis were awash in cash.
This is true. It's, if you really want to stop these people, these organizations, go for the money. Without no money, they don't have any ability to have resources or have any soft power over the people. They need money, and if you cut that off, well, eventually they'll wither away.
Then they got arrogant, started shooting at our ships. We look weak. Not anymore. Not under President Trump. That will stop. The Houthis shooting at our ships will stop. Iran must get that clear message and negotiate the end of their pursuit for nuclear weapons because, as I mentioned, President Trump has said clearly they will not get a bomb.
And I know that the Department of Defense sent a letter to the Chairman Rogers, recently about this 8% budget relook that you have called for, Secretary. And I want to get your take on that because President Trump was very clear with me last week. He is not cutting defense spending. Here's the president with me last week right here.
You said you wanted to do the Golden Dome. You've got a lot of ideas for America. But then earlier you said you wanted to cut $1 trillion in defense spending, right?
I didn't say I was.
You did not. So I was like, which is it? Are you cutting defense spending or are you building us up?
I never said defense spending.
Okay, because I think you were talking about denuclearization, and that's where the cutting of the spending came in.
I never said cut. No, it's not in these days. I'd love to cut defense spending, but not now. Because you have China, you have Russia, you have a lot of problems out there.
I think what was getting confused here is that there was, if I remember this correctly, there was some talks online where Trump was trying to sit down with Xi Jinping, Putin, and say, hey, can we cut down the defense spending by half? But, like, that's super unrealistic, right? Like, no one actually thought that was serious. I was like, oh, that's a nice idea. That's a nice thought. Never going to happen.
So, Secretary, the letter that was sent to Chairman Rogers was talking about the fiscal year 26 budget request, perhaps incorporating that 8% decline there. If you're looking at an increase in defense spending, Secretary, how do you allocate that? Where are the needs in our military? I know we don't have enough ships, and the Navy in China is actually dominating us when it comes to the number of ships. But how do you allocate that increase in defense spending?
Ships, shipbuildings, long-range munitions, hypersonics, long-range drones, Golden Dome, Southern Border. The president has laid out very clearly his agenda to rebuild the U.S. military. He did it in his first term. He's going to do it again. This 8% has been highly mischaracterized, Maria. It's not a cut. It's a reallocation away from Biden priorities toward Green New Deal stuff, toward President Trump priorities. So we have revived the warrior ethos inside the military. We're reestablishing deterrence. And per the president's direction, we're going to rebuild the military. You're going to see a historic investment in the weapons and modernization required to stand up to our enemies. President Trump is committed to that. He's asked me to be a part of it. We're going to work with Capitol Hill to do it. But we're going to be fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars, Maria. We're going to pass an audit. We're going to work with DOJ. We're going to find there's plenty of waste, fraud, and abuse in the DOD, and we're going to find it. At the same time, we're going to reinvest overwhelmingly in systems and rebuild this military because our kids and grandkids require it, and President Trump's leading the way.
Walk softly and carry a big stick. You know, there's a lot of things that I think I'm noticing on the internet. One of the things that I'm noticing is that whenever people talk about Trump, it makes me feel like Xi Jinping out in North Korea, where it's like you could only say great things about our great leader. He has provided us with great fortune, and we are very blessed to have his honor bestowed upon us. It's like that is the vibe that I get whenever I hear Pete Buttigieg talk about Trump, JD Vance, literally anybody when they bring up Trump, how great he is, how perfect his hair is, how strong and wise he is. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but the glazing is real.